All right, so tell us about the deal with Colt. We knew he had a procedure a few weeks ago, I thought, was the last I had heard. I didn't know he had a third one. Do you have any more detail on it? Like, is this infection related? Like, what's going on?
So, broke the leg back in December, had a procedure then, and Jay Gruden was honest about it. Earlier this offseason, he said, we for a possible playoff, which now sounds almost funny, but at the time was a real possibility.
What a farce.
Obviously, that surgery didn't work. He had to have another surgery in early March. That's when we all saw the picture of Colt at the IndyCar race down in Austin on crutches, and everybody kind of flew into what is going on here. And it ends up he had to have one more procedure within the past 10 days, and he's under doctor's orders to stay down in Texas for his recovery. And a big part of that, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Redskins Park, but the locker room and the weight rooms and everything are actually downstairs. A flight of stairs. You walk in on kind of a main floor and then walk downstairs, whereas Colt's house in Texas is a ranch-style home, so it's all one floor. So there's a lot less concerns about going up and down stairs and potentially falling, all those sorts of things. I don't know that it's an infection, EB, but just, kind of common sense and what we've seen is when they have to go back in a few times, usually leads you to believe that there's been some sort of complication. And I certainly think that's the case.
So, JP, are you telling me that Redskins Park does not have a functioning elevator in the building?
There is an elevator. Of course there's an elevator.
There's one right to the left. You walk in, there's one right to the left.
Now that makes sense. Because you can't run an NFL team where guys are banged up all the time without a functioning elevator.
I think if you're a NFL player, you don't love having to wait for the elevator to go up and down a flight of stairs between and down to where you're going to eat, all those sorts of things.
So what does this mean to you? Is this why they signed the other guy, the guy from the AAF, Josh Woodburn or whatever, because they knew that they got some issues here still with Colt?
Well, it's tricky because I think they're not sure. The folks I've talked to have said Colt will definitely be back for minicamp, which is kind of the last. Minicamp is mandatory, and everybody's supposed to be there, and that's the last thing they'll do before they go to training camp and have kind of a nice long 6-week break. I don't know that we're going to see Colt fully functioning during OTAs, maybe at the end of OTAs. He's just missing the workout portions now. I think the AAF guy, in a lot of ways, is they just need an arm. They need an arm to be able to throw passes to these guys beyond Case Keenum. I think the biggest thing this means is there's some questions about where Colt's going to be health-wise. And when you everyone, Bruce Allen, Jay Gruden, these guys have all said there's going to be an open competition between Colt and Case Keenum going into week one. One of those guys will be our week one starter. Colt had a big leg up because he knew the offense. He'd been in the building for 4 years. Now maybe Keenum's going to be able to make up some of that ground in a much faster time because Colt's not healthy. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of the story of Colt's career, or at least his career with the Skins, where just injuries at really inopportune times can continue to hold him back when he does have opportunities. I don't think whatever's going on with Colt impacts what they're going. They need a quarterback. Colt McCoy was healthy or not. Both Keenum and Colt are only on one-year deals. They have nobody on this roster that seems likely to play in 2020 unless you think Alex Smith is that guy. I don't. I think they have to address the quarterback position. And in conversations, both on the record, Doug Williams on Monday said we know we need to add a quarterback. And when you talk to guys off the record and on background conversations, I think it's very obvious they know they need to add a quarterback on a rookie contract, because that's the only way the money works when you owe Alex Smith $41 million over the next 2 seasons.
I heard Michael Lombardi yesterday, and he was an executive in the NFL for a long time. He worked in Oakland for 10 years, worked with Cleveland too. But he said, outside of Murray, and he said he wouldn't take Murray number one. He said he thinks all these quarterbacks that are in the draft are mainly backups. Right? That's just one guy's opinion. But people are all over the place on these guys. Casserly loves Daniel Jones. Other guys hate him.
Well, it's not that he loves him, but he compares him favorably to Brad Johnson.
He likes him.
Yeah.
Well, go beyond Casserly. Gil Brandt compares Daniel Jones directly to Peyton Manning.
Right.
Says that's who his comp is. I think this draft feels the absolute most wide open in a long time, and I think that's because there is no consensus on the quarterbacks. Usually you can look. Last year we knew, especially by this time, by 48 hours from the draft, we knew it was going to be Mayfield at 1. We knew the Jets really liked Sam Darnold, and that allows you to kind of project the rest of the top 10. This time last year, everybody knew it was either going to be Deron Payne or Vita Vea for the Redskins. And there was some conversation of if this guy slips, maybe it'd be Derwin James. But roughly, most folks thought it was going to be one of those two players because the Skins still had a glaring need on their defensive line. And those were the two best guys projected to be available when the Redskins were going to draft. And sure enough, it worked out that way. This year, I don't think there's any real projection where you can say, I definitely see that happening, because any combination of Jones or Haskins, and certainly Drew Lock, might be available at 15. And I had one NFC talent evaluator tell me that the only guy worth trading up for is Kyler Murray. But Kyler Murray's probably going number 1. And the rest of these guys, you wait and see if they're there at 15, and if they're not, you just take the best defensive guy on the board. So that is just allows for so much variance. It's hard to really know what's going to happen.
Well, that's been sort of the thinking all along, but in the last week or two, I don't know if this is just sort of standard NFL subterfuge right before the draft. All of a sudden now the number 1 pick is kind of up for grabs. We've got people that, most people respect, like Daniel Jeremiah, saying, a month ago he thought it was 90% they were going to take Murray. Now he's down to 60%. He tweeted that a week or so ago. Other people, I think Pete Prisco went on the record, and he's been a long time. I don't necessarily love Pete. He's been on the show a million times, but he went on the record and said they weren't going to select Kyler Murray. You think they still will? What kind of likelihood do you put on that? And then these rumors of the Redskins moving up to 3, is that contingent upon them not selecting Murray? That would sort of be the only scenario where you'd see them being interested in moving up?
I believe if they're going to move up to 3, that's for Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
And I believe that they won't get the chance because Murray's going to go first.
Right.
Obviously, that could change. I'm not saying write it in stone.
Right.
But I think for what the Redskins would have to give up to go to number 3, you have to have a player that is by far the tops on your draft board. And quarterback kind of sways your draft board because the position is so important. But Murray is rated significantly further ahead of any of the other 3 options. And I just don't see them going to 3 because they want Haskins and the Raiders want Haskins. It doesn't make sense to me for what they'd have to give up. I think Haskins could be a good player, but I think he needs to sit behind a real starter for a year. And maybe the Redskins have that scenario in that Case Keenum can start for a year and then Haskins is your guy in 2020.
Right.
But for me, you cannot go up there to take Dwayne Haskins. Maybe if he gets past the Giants at 6, and then you're talking about only having to move up to 8 where the Lions are or 10 where the Broncos are, and the Skins have had some success trading with Denver, then the scenario changes. But going to 3 for anybody but Kyler Murray does not make sense to me. And the other part, the Reds, Bruce Allen, Jay Gruden, anybody you talk to will say, we are close and we plan on competing in 2019. Jay Gruden had the quote, this isn't AAA baseball. We're not here to develop anybody. We're here to win games. If you draft Kyler Murray, you have to overhaul your offensive system. The Skins are building a team to win grinded-out football games, low-scoring football games. That's not Kyler Murray. And so if you do make a big move for a player like that, there's got to be some willingness to accept we have to change a lot of things. We're probably not going to be competing in 2019. I don't know that they're willing to do that. But, I tweeted this out this morning. There's one very interesting kind of note going into the draft. 11 of the past 12 rounds taken in the NFL draft, a team has traded up to get them. So what we're seeing more and more is that teams have decided that's our guy. We're going to go get him. We're not going to lose the opportunity to somebody else. And I think you got to keep that in mind, and keep this in mind, too. The last time the Redskins missed the playoffs 3 straight seasons was 2012, and they had a fan base that was, tired of the losing, growing apathetic, whatever you want to say. The team made a very big move to go get Robert Griffin III with the 2nd overall pick. Skins just missed the playoffs 3 straight seasons, and certainly they have a fan base that's very tired of the losing and maybe is no longer apathetic, but is actually kind of angry.